The wait is over and we have the last class overview for the Warlock, and that is Affliction. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, 1 week away, well, less than 1 week away from Battle for Azeroth, and we're down to the last spec for the Warlock to overview, and that is Affliction. I left this one for last because, personally, let's just say it's not my favorite. It's okay-ish. I kind of liked the Legion one better, but then again, I haven't played this one as much as I did the Legion one. It feels a little bit awkward, and we're gonna go into why that feels a little bit awkward. What was changed really quick: Drain Soul is no longer baseline. It's going to be a talent that replaces Shadow Bolt, and yes, we have Shadow Bolt back. Where are you, Shadow Bolt? Here you are, Shadow Bolt. Yes, for all those of you who want Shadow Bolt back on Affliction, well, we have Shadow Bolt back on Affliction, if it wasn't clear so far. And yeah, pretty much. Other than that, we have a lot of different talents as opposed to Legion, and let's actually go right into these talents right now. First tier, we have Death Bolt, a new talent which so far seems to be performing a lot better than the other two. Basically, you get an insta-cast Death Bolt that deals 30% of the remaining damage on all of your dots on the target, which means the more dots you have and the more remaining time they have, the more damage Death Bolt does. So that means that the dots need to be fresh and they need to be as many as possible, which adds a lot of management to the spec. There's a lot of math involved, I'm not gonna lie. Ugh. Alright. Next up, pretty much all of them are valid. Siphon Life, in terms of DPS, edges up further ahead than these other two. It's an extra cooldown, it's an extra global cooldown, and you have survivability. It deals a decent amount of damage, and I would recommend it for PvE in this sense. And next year we have the normals, which is whatever the fuck you want. Burning Rush is what you get for PvE, Demonic Skin for PvP, or the Dark Pact for PvP as well. We're not going to go too much into the PvP build, that's up for later, but for now we're just going to focus on the PvE one. And next up, we have Phantom Singularity. Now, this is another cooldown. We had this in Legion as well. Now, it works a little bit different, not a lot though. You basically dot a target that deals its damage in a 15 yards radius to all of the enemies for 13.6 seconds, depending on your haste, of course, and you heal for a quarter of that damage. So another dot that plays into Death Bolt. Level 75 mobility. We can get Demonic Circle for raids. You can get Dark Fury for Mythic Plus, Demonic Circle for PvP as well. So pick and choose, pick your poison. Now, level 90, and this is a big beef that I have with the current talent system. Haunt is back, another dot, which I actually like. I like having as many tools to play with as possible. However, for me personally, it makes Death Bolt a chore to balance out and to play effectively, because its cooldown kind of synergizes with Death Bolt. 15 seconds, you get to cast another Haunt in between Death Bolts. But it's a lot of global cooldowns, and if you're going to do a lot of Mythic Plus, this is going to be laborious trying to keep up. And this is why I usually go with Grimoire Sacrifice, which is almost the same amount of damage. Single target Haunt will pull a little bit ahead, but I personally enjoy Grimoire of Sacrifice not having to use any pest, so I would recommend this. If you're going to be playing, if you're not going to need to interrupt, essentially, I would recommend using Voidwalker. If you sacrifice, you get its ability, where you have 30% of your max health generated in shield. You get a shield that equals 30% of your max health. You don't lose health by using this ability, which is good for sustain, since we don't have that insane healing we had in Legion, so you can take that. If you want interrupts, you can take Fell Hunter. I don't think any others would probably work, but I mean, there might be an argument for Imp, because you get Singe Magic that removes harmful effects on an ally, but I mean, healers have that covered with the spell anyway. Last year, Creeping Death seems to have the biggest number. Although I personally like how Dark Soul Misery kind of plays, its cooldown is horrible. That barely aligns with all of the other spells. It doesn't align pretty well with Phantom Singularity. It doesn't align very well with our DPS cooldown, which is on a 3-minute cooldown. So Creeping Death is pulling a lot ahead. Regarding this, it makes it a little bit more engaging since you will have to refresh your dots a lot quicker. They do tick a lot, and it's a lot of redotting, let's just say that. So I would recommend Creeping Death to start learning the spec. After BFA is out and we get to 120, we'll see exactly which of the other talents will work better in terms of numbers. Now, quickly, before we go into the rotation, I would like to discuss Summon Dark Lair, which is our DPS cooldown. Every spec now has a different demon, and we get the Summon Dark Lair, which in Legion was a PvP talent. Now, what this does is when you pop it, it prolongs the duration of the dots that are already out by 8 seconds, which, of course, is gonna work really well with Deathbolt, and it will deal the more dots you have out, the more damage it's going to deal. So you kind of want to pop this out once you have all of your dots out. Now, this works as well with the Deathbolt, because there is actually a combo in place where you're going to be doing this almost 30 seconds shortly, and like an insane spike every 3 minutes. So what essentially you're going to do is cast your dot in reverse order depending on the duration. So the highest duration dot first, so that Summon Dark Lair gives you as much duration on all of them as possible, so to increase your Deathbolt damage as much as possible. Going right in, let's say we start at the pool. If you're gonna play Hunt, this is where you first cast Hunt. If you have Grimoire of Sacrifice, you're just going to start with Phantom Singularity, then you're going to pop Agony, then you're going to pop Siphon Life, then Corruption, then 4 casts of Unstable Affliction, because most of the times you're gonna get another shard, and then instantly Dark Lair and Deathbolt. Now, this is not the best opening rotation, but as you can see, the Deathbolt created for 16k. That's a big spike. And after this, you just want to make sure that all of your dots are up, they don't drop off at all, and then just spam Shadow Bolts. And that's it. You're gonna be doing this for 30 seconds once Deathbolt comes back off cooldown. Now, during this time frame, you don't really want to use Unstable Affliction anymore. Unstable Affliction will only be used so you don't cap on Soul Shards, because when Deathbolt comes back off cooldown, you want to cast 1 or 2 Unstable Afflictions and then pop Deathbolt. Again, of course, once Deathbolt comes off cooldown and you have Phantom Singularity off as well, which actually doesn't align really well with Deathbolt, but ugh. Whatever, you're gonna pop again. Let's say you didn't drop the buffs like I did, and they're already up. So you're gonna cast Phantom Singularity again, refresh Agony, refresh Siphon, refresh Corruption, 2 Unstable Afflictions, Deathbolt, and that's it. You're gonna get like a 4, 5, 6k Deathbolt. I didn't get it that high because I didn't have all the stacks on Agony, and well, the damage kind of ranges. But this is in the middle of the rotation. Afterwards, you still spam Shadow Bolts, don't cap on shards, every now and again an Unstable Affliction. Make sure that your dots don't drop. And this is pretty much it. Once Dark Lair comes off cooldown and you're still fighting, let's say, a boss, you kind of want to hover at around 4 or 5 shards. Now, 4 or 5 shards, you're just going to pop them all into Unstable Afflictions. The rotation remains the same. Pop Singularity, Agony, Siphon, Corruption, and then all of the Afflictions, and then Deathbolt, and that's essentially it. The rotation is not very complicated. It's pretty much the same thing all over again. It's just a lot of managing the dots, making sure that the Agony stacks don't drop off, and this is with this build. So far, Deathbolt is the most interesting talent at the first tier and the best one to work at first tier. Everything else is just redotting. When the build changes, the rotation will probably change as well, but until then, this is what you gotta do. This is probably going to work for leveling as well, because you're gonna want Siphon Life for leveling for that sustain, especially if you're gonna be doing world PvP. You might not want Creeping Death, although, since leveling mobs will die fairly fast, I don't think Creeping Death is that good in PvP. It kind of makes it a little bit awkward to keep Siphon Life, but again, world PvP is different than arenas. Other than that, I think this is a fairly good talent set to start Affliction off and see how it goes. You can use it in leveling, and let's quickly check a few fights just as an example of the rotation. As the fight starts, you're going to pop your dots on the target, starting from the longest duration dot to the shortest duration dot, so that when you pop Dark Lair, you're going to be able to benefit the most from that extra 8-second duration. Now, the fight starts, and we're going to start with Agony, and then Phantom Singularity, and then Siphon Life, and then Corruption, and then we start casting those Unstable Afflictions, and after we have at least 3, you can get 4 as well, depending on your procs, get that Dark Lair and pop the Deathbolt. After that, you just keep spamming Shadow Bolts. During the course of the fight, you're going to reapply your Agony, you're going to reapply your Corruption, and you're going to reapply your Siphon Life, and keep casting Shadow Bolts. You're going to use Unstable Affliction so you don't cap on shards, and keep saving those unstables until Death Bolt comes back off cooldown. Make sure that once it's off cooldown, you have your dots refreshed and have those Unstable Afflictions out. It doesn't properly align with Phantom Singularity, so you're either going to have to delay your Death Bolts a little bit for like 15 seconds and then pop it once Phantom is out, or you're going to just pop Death Bolt and pop Phantom off cooldown, since if you do wait those 15 seconds, then your Death Bolt will not align with your Dark Glare. And this is where I said that this build is kind of clunky. Not all of the cooldowns, the DPS cooldowns, align with each other properly, so you're going to either have to wait and pop all of them officially for a big DPS spike, or you're just going to rotate them evenly throughout the fight, which actually involves a little bit of math. So since the numbers are still not 100% balanced at 110, I'm not sure exactly what the most efficient rotation will be. We're gonna have to wait for 120 for that. For the AoE rotation, it's pretty self-explanatory, just redot everything. I would recommend using Agony and Corruption if you have more than 4 targets, I would say, because you won't have enough globals to put everything on. You can just try to use Unstable Affliction so you don't cap on shards and lose a little bit of DPS, but seeing as in this particular fight I had so many AoE targets, I literally didn't have enough global cooldowns and haste to apply Corruption and Agony on all of them before they actually dropped off. This is why Haunt is even worse in AoE, because you won't have time to actually take advantage of Haunt, which is Grimoire of Sacrifice is better for AoE. And since you're pretty much going to have AoE in Mythic Plus almost all the time, Grimoire Sacrifice is why I didn't take Haunt. But this is pretty much the Affliction spec. What I think about it, it's interesting. I like the fact that you have to manage so many dots. I like the fact that you have to manage so many cooldowns, but they're so hard to manage properly. I feel like whatever I do, I never get the best Death Bolt out. It's a little bit annoying, it's a little bit frustrating. It's not as big of a problem in PvP. I actually like Affliction a lot more in PvP than in PvE, but even still, it has decent damage. It's always going to scale pretty well. It's probably up there with Destro. As far as I could tell, I'm doing pretty much decent damage with Affliction, and as history says, it's probably one of the best scaling Warlock specs that we have. This rounds up our class overview of the Warlock. A lot more are scheduled to come once Battle for Azeroth is out. I have a few classes in mind that I want to play. I will focus on the Warlock as my main, so expect a lot more in-depth content for the Warlock, especially PvP content for the Warlock as well. We'll see how things are balanced at 120. And thank you for sticking around, guys. Please tell me what you think in the comment section below. What spec do you play? What do you think is the strongest spec? And what do you PvP with? I'm actually really curious, since I haven't seen a lot of Warlocks so far. As you can see in this particular fantastic LFR, it's just 1 or 2 Warlocks here, and that's pretty much it. I want to know what you guys think, so let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We do daily content on World of Warcraft. We have PvP, PvE, and Friday, of course, we have WoW news. So stay tuned for that, enable those notifications, and I'll see you guys next time.